So welcome to the Manhire Show. I'm Dad.
I'm Mike.
I'm Will. And you gotta push your button.
Have,
Hannah.
Oh. She's not on video, but she's mic'd up, so.
Also in the studio, we have the assistant director, Kateri. Say hi, Kateri. Can you put the mic on? Say hi, Kateri.
Hi.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So Kateri is the youngest of the Manhires, and she's being the intern tonight. She's getting the water and kind of stuff. Speaking of which, okay, so we had promised a show about the warning. We did a show about Fatima. We didn't get to get too deep into some of the elements of Fatima after the apparitions, because there are the apparitions that take place in 1917, and then there are other apparitions that take place basically up through the early 1930s, and then there are some interviews with Sister Lucia, who's the primary seer, into the late 50s. 1957, I believe, is the last interview that she gives, and she's really kept back by the church. They do not let her give a lot of interviews. They don't let her talk to a lot of people, and there's even this whole theory. I don't want to call it a conspiracy theory, but it is a theory that the Sister Lucia that we see in the 70s, 80s with John Paul II, and eventually dies in 2005, is not the same woman as Sister Lucia.
Really?
That goes to 1957. Now, as crazy as that sounds, and I thought the same thing too, if you do look at a picture of Sister Lucia that was taken from childhood to the 1950s, you can tell it's her. She has some very distinct things about her, including the fact that she never did an open tooth smile, but when she did, she has like this really long odd tooth. It's and also the way her mouth bends in a certain way, and her eyes and her nose. The Sister Lucia that we see in the 1970s is markedly different. Always has an open tooth smile for the most part, so you can always see her teeth. No problems. So even if she had some dental work, some people say, but that's not how she smiles. You know, she learned to smile in a very different way. And also her chin and her facial structure is different. And facial experts have done analysis of this to say, these are the points that, to me, say this is not the same person. The mouth is markedly different. The nose is different. You know, it's not just like, oh, there's a mole or something. There's structural parts of the face that are just different. And so there's an entire theory that there is what's called the fake Sister Lucia, that the real Sister Lucia gave her very last interview with Father Fuentes in 1957 and urged him that things were getting very bad, that the devil was in a mood to take on a decisive battle with the Virgin, meaning a final battle, and that in 1960 things would be made more clear when the third secret was finally opened up. Okay. And of course, it wasn't if it was opened up, it wasn't shared with the public. And Father Fuentes said that Sister Lucia, when he saw her in 1957, was very weak and thin, and she had almost died in the early 40s, which is why the bishop asked her to actually write the third secret down. He goes, just in case you die, we should probably get this down. So there's the theory goes something like this, that the real Sister Lucia died. She died maybe sometime between 1957, which is the last time anybody saw her, and then she reemerges in the late 60s, early 70s as looking quite different. And then, so, you know, she died and there was this replacement Sister Lucia.
Interesting.
Yes.
Did her message change at all?
She didn't talk about it at all. So
The third secret?
The new Sister Lucia, if you will, never talked about it, never gave interviews about it, wasn't allowed to talk about it. When Pope John Paul II made the consecration in 1984, not for Russia, but for the world, and he said Russia under his breath, there are many people that will argue both sides, saying but did it really matter that he said Russia or not? You know, and I don't want to get into that argument. I think there are some valid points on both sides, but Sister Lucia, there's a message from Sister Lucia at that time, which according to this particular theory would be the fake Sister Lucia, that said, that's okay, heaven has accepted the consecration. Now, some people that say that's the fake Sister Lucia say, well, remember Our Lady's message that once Russia was consecrated, that there would be this period of peace? And that really hasn't happened yet. Now, some things did happen, right? The Iron Curtain fell just years after 1984, right? 1989, it started to crumble. By 1991, it was all but gone. And so you can see how certain things did happen with Russia, especially the communist system at that time in Russia, that one could say, wow, he made the consecration, stuff happened, right?
Is the theory proposed to be like of sinister origins, like, or is it? Yeah, I guess that's really all I mean.
Yeah, it's origins in the sense of there are most likely churchmen, meaning people in the hierarchy of the church,
that are actually Freemasons.
That are, or at least supportive of the Masonic type of government, which is a very, which one of its manifestations is a communist government, even if it's not politically communist. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we could get into with Fatima, as you could see here, right? And even with the Sister Lucia issues, people have said that, well, we don't have to decide whether she's fake or not. Since she's being handled, she is a handler, and you actually never hear her talk. She didn't have to say anything. Her handlers came out and said, Sister Lucia said this, that heaven accepted the message.
Oh, really?
You know, so there's all these different angles on this. But the Fatima one that we did, I think, was pretty well received. We got some decent numbers.
It's our third highest viewed podcast.
Third highest viewed podcast. I think it might still hold number one for the most views since publishing.
Probably, yeah.
So that tells us that the listeners and the viewers are interested in stories like this. And so instead of having a Fatima part 2, and I kind of went through a rough version of some of the things we could have talked about, we also could have talked more about how the third secret wasn't fully revealed in many people's minds. We decided to talk about something that might be, it could have greater proximity, let me put it that way, to our current time and what we're going through right now. It might. What's called the warning. I believe in Spanish it's el aviso. Does anybody speak Spanish in the studio? No. It's called the warning, sometimes called the illumination of conscience. And there have been a few videos on this, I would say, over the last year. Sister Anne at houseofmaryomd.org did one almost a year ago. I think it was November of 2019 that she did one. And very quickly it became one of her most viewed videos. So the topic is, she got to over 100,000 views very, very quickly.
Oh, wow.
So the topic is one that's very, very relevant and timely. And in fact, Sister Anne is one of the sponsors of a conference that's happening in Wichita, Kansas, the beginning of November. I don't have the exact dates, but they are, it's, I believe, after the election, like the 5th and 6th of November. But if you are interested in knowing more about the warning, especially after we tell you about it, this conference might be something that you want to participate in either live, or you can also participate virtually. And it's for, the theme of the conference is talking about how do those of us who are kind of waiting for the warning to happen stand ready to help those who are going to experience it but aren't ready. It's going to be a complete 2x4 to the head. They're going to be, what just happened? I don't know what I think, what I believe, and how can we be the first responders, so to speak, spiritually. So I think it's a really good conference. We can't make it because we have some family
logistics
folks, logistics, which we're excited about. But we, I know Mom and I are going to try to do the virtual as much as possible. Cool. But if you're interested, and if I think about it while we're editing this down, I'll try to put the website up on the screen, and I'll try to put a card. It should be right over there on top of Mike's head. That leads you to Sister Anne's houseofmaryomd.org, and you can register for the conference.
It's houseofmary.omd.
I don't believe so. I think it's houseofmaryomd.org. But by the time that we're at this point in the conversation, the card will have appeared above my head.
You're right. Yeah.
It will have appeared under here. Yeah. And one of us will be right and one of us will be wrong for sure. I don't think OMD is a suffix.
I know that she likes to use custom suffixes, which you can do.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
Okay. So, folks, you already know the answer because you've already seen us put it up, but we are going to, just so that we don't have to spend the rest of the show wondering, whether Will was wrong or not.
I was wrong.
So it's House of Mary, OMD, Oscar Mike Delta, .org. And it's the Order of the Mother of God, or Ordo Mater Dei in Latin, OMD. So House of Mary, OMD.org. Spiritual First Responders is the conference, and empowering the spiritual first responders, enlightened consciences, empowering the spiritual first responders is the title of it. And it looks like it's going to be pretty good. If you know Father Altman, he's been in the news lately. He's the one from it's okay. He's the one from La Crosse, Wisconsin, who has been in the news lately, was under attack for some of the homilies he gave that said you can't be a Catholic and vote for Joe Biden.
I didn't hear about this, but I agree with that.
So he first of all, he's great. Late vocation, used to be a lawyer and had a late vocation and was called to the priesthood. Gives these great homilies, and I think he kind of came out of nowhere, and he was just talking truth, and a lot of people responded to it. And then once his bishop came out and really spoke out against his tone, not his message, but his tone. And by the way, I don't think this was a homily. I think that Father Altman was just giving like a talk, so he wasn't even speaking from the, from the pulpit. Church Militant, LifeSite News. Gordon, Tim Gordon. I don't know if what's his name in Dallas. I don't know. I'm sorry, Dr. Taylor Marshall. If Taylor Marshall had him on or not, but he was on a lot. He got a lot of coverage. Father Jim Altman will be at this conference. It's confirmed that he will be at the Spiritual First Responders Conference. So if that would be enough reason. If you're on the fence for me, then I would go. I can't because of family issues. So if you're watching this and you know who I'm talking about, and you want to see Father Altman, it is November 6th through the 8th in Wichita, Kansas. So again, go on the website, and Sister Ann did not tell me to plug it, but there you go, sister. There's the plug. So we're going to talk about the warning, which is the thing that will, if it happens, leave many people in a state of spiritual disarray. And so
the lines to the confessional will be long.
The lines of the confessional will be long. Somebody once said, I think it was, may have been Father Jim Blunt, that was thinking about this, and a priest friend of his came up to him, not knowing that he had gone to this one place that we'll mention called Garabandal, and the priest just looked at him and said, Father, there will come a day where we will be hearing confessions 18 hours a day. They'll have to pass food to us into the confessional because the lines will be so long that people will be rushing to confession. And if the warning is what it's supposed to be, that is what's going to happen, Will. You're absolutely right. So how do you want to do it? You want me to give any pre-setup stuff?
No, just fire hose it.
You want me to just go right into it?
Yes, go ahead.
That's where I do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So does everybody in the studio know about the warning to some extent?
I think so, yeah. Maybe, Hannah?
To some extent.
To some extent? Okay, good. So you'll be my foil that you can ask questions. You got to jump in and say, wait, back up. What was that? Okay. All right. So the warning, el aviso. Now, the warning is somewhat of a misnomer. I believe that aviso in Spanish, while it technically means warning, if you were to see an electrical fence and it would in English would say warning, electric fence, it will say aviso, electric fence.
Excuse me.
But it translates better to putting us on notice.
Gotcha.
It's more of like a putting on notice that I want to reveal something to you that is real so that you know for sure what the situation is. And so that there's no way that you can say, I didn't know that that you actually made a choice for God or against God with full understanding, full disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, and it's not a gotcha. It's not saying, hey, this is my last, fair warning, it's a putting on notice, but it really is an act of divine mercy. It is perhaps one of the greatest possible acts of divine mercy. And Kateri, while I'm talking about this, do you mind going and getting a picture of divine mercy, probably above my bed or someplace else that has that one? And we'll put an image up for the folks as well. But it's an act of divine mercy because let me put it this way, Mike. If I had to convince you of something, and if I had to try to convince you of something, if I had to try and convince you of something that really was against or was not something that was supported by the way you were brought up or the culture that you're in or anything like that, what would be the best way for me to convince you of a certain truth? A certain truth?
No, I guess so. I would say more personally with facts in the basis, less of just kind of
right. So if I wanted to say, Mike, there's a supernatural truth, and you were someone that happened to grow up and said, I don't believe in supernatural truth, and I were to make all of the rational arguments, and I were to cite spiritual fathers and saints and stuff like that, would I persuade you that I'm right?
Probably not.
Yeah,
I would say no.
Yeah,
I'd say 99% of people on this planet would say no.
I would say they'd say no too. They would say mostly like, okay, that's a head argument.
yeah. I think most people want to see it for themselves.
Right. Now, if for instance, if I said, Mike, there is this probably 7 to 9 foot tall primate living in the northwest forests of America,
Or that the earth is round.
well, maybe, yeah. But if I said, Mike, Sasquatch is real, and you were somebody who just like, no, I know he's not, and I said, but there's these footprints. There are these evidence that these kind of like second or third
eyewitnesses and stuff.
People told stories, right? And they seem very convinced, and I don't think they're all lying. And I think a healthy skeptic would say something like this: until I saw the body, or until I saw Sasquatch, until I didn't just see him, but I experienced him. And I had an experience within myself of this creature, of etc. Only then would I truly believe. Because even if I saw something that I wasn't sure of, that just means I wasn't sure of it. Doesn't mean it's Sasquatch, right? Maybe if I can possibly explain it in any other way, I'm still not necessarily going to be convinced that this Sasquatch is real.
Mm-hmm.
I
need
think
to make him our mascot.
I think we should, kind of like Jack Slink's beef jerky.
Yeah.
We should have a Sasquatch.
Yeah.
We should start getting. So as our following grows, it would be great if people would send us little Sasquatch dolls and figurines, and we can start, making shelves with Sasquatch.
Yes.
Because I think Sasquatch is going to bring some people to Jesus.
I think so.
I think we are going to use. I think he has.
Yeah.
We're going to use Sasquatch to do that. So yes, if you want to start sending that, do we have a mailing address, Hannah? We should probably get a PO box eventually, and
We don't get bombs in the mail.
right. Yeah, not to my house.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I don't know. Are we listening?
Maybe we'll send them to
That's right.
across
That's
the
right.
way's house.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a couple people on the street will be happy to give you their
Yes,
address.
yes.
Yes. Send a 9 foot tall, hairy man to their
Please.
door. So many people who didn't have a predisposition to believe in things that they didn't have experience of would require that experience. So let's say now I was trying to convince you that God existed, but you were like a Sasquatch skeptic on the side of, I have to see it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
What can most believers do? There are very few people who can say, well, let me, ask Jesus to come and appear to you, and he'll have a talk with you. That just doesn't happen, right? Mm-hmm. We know it doesn't happen. What if even there was a huge sign in the sky that, everybody saw all around the world, which is really weird since it's a round globe, you can't see certain things.
People would rationalize
right?
it or say it's aliens.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, well, no, that was
Some
a satellite
phenomenon.
It looked like a cross in the sky and stuff,
really
and it wasn't really,
yeah.
and it was dark only because of the solar minimum, and there was an eclipse. I don't know, something.
Yeah.
There'll be scientific explanations for these things, much like there are for Sasquatch, aliens, or other things that we put into the I don't know if it's real or not category.
Mm-hmm.
So what is left? What is the only way that a God who loves you, a God who wants you to know that he's real, that wants you to believe in him, what's his only recourse?
Revelation, like self-revelation.
To come to you personally. Mm-hmm. He has to come to you personally, and he has to come to you in a way that's not afar off.
Yeah.
That's some blurry image in the sky or some blurry image in the forest. He has to come to you in the innermost depths of your heart and your soul, to where you walk away from that going, I don't know if I can explain what just happened to me, but I know something because of the experience I had. I know it's true. I know it's real, and I can't even put words to it, but I know. Mm-hmm. And now that I know, I have to decide what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, how I'm going to live my life, how I'm going to treat others, how I'm going to have a relationship with God.
I also think even for a lot of Christians, or I think most Christians, it'll help them a lot too. I think it's kind of like the Mary's Room thought experiment, where for a lot of people that are Christians by either like heritage, like they were raised that way, or they've been brought into it, but they haven't really had an experience. They're just like can ration their way through it, or any people that have had experiences, but not like as significant as that. I think it'd be a lot like the Mary's Room thought experiment, which I'll explain. Where the Mary's Room thought experiment is basically this girl named Mary, and she grows up in a room and never experiences color her entire life. Everything's black and white.
Right.
And she learns everything about colors. She knows the wavelengths. She knows everything. Yeah. She knows all the scientific data. She knows all the logic. She knows it exists, and she knows everything about it, but she's never seen it. And then she experiences color for the first time one day. She gets, walked out into the world. There's fundamental knowledge gained just by the experience of it. Even if she can't say, well, I know this much more about color because she can't write down other than obviously what she saw, but she can't scientifically add more to her notebook.
Right,
but
that's
there
a
is
good point.
Yeah.
Nor is it just, well, now I have this much more, a marginal gain in my knowledge of it.
Yeah.
I had this much knowledge, and then I finally topped it off with the experience.
No,
it's a fundamentally new knowledge, a new way of knowing that I would argue that the Mary's Room thought experiment, which I did not know about, so thank you for sharing with me, would be similar to what St. Thomas Aquinas said, even though he wrote voluminously on very, very deep issues of theology of all sorts liturgical theology, sacred theology. He wrote poetry. He wrote hymns. He wrote these expressions that were and these things where you'd say, how do you know that? How do you know that? That has to be revealed to you, because you know what, you're right, but how did you figure that out?
Yeah.
Even he, when he finally had an experience toward the end of his life, before the foot of the cross, something was revealed to him, because at that moment he stopped writing and he said, everything I've written up to this moment is mere straw.
Yeah.
It's mere straw. And so the Mary's room thought experiment is like that. It's not just, okay, now I know a little bit more about my subject matter. I fundamentally have to change everything I knew before, even what I thought I knew about this particular subject.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. And so that's fundamentally what the warning would be as far as an experience. Now let's get into more of the details of it, but that's really why it would be an act of mercy, an act of mercy for God, who knew that about us, who knew that about the human condition, that we would have to experience color and not just know about it, to experience him personally. So how are we going to experience him personally in the warning? I will tell you about the warning, and then I'll go and tell you about different mystics and saints and people who for over 1,000 years have been predicting this will happen. What's going to happen is there will come a moment, and it will be whenever you're doing whatever you're doing. It could be right now while we're doing this podcast. It could be while you're in an airplane, although that doesn't happen much anymore.
Yep. So if you're not in a car.
Could be while you're in a car.
Yeah.
It could be anything. What will happen is time will stop, essentially. I don't know how else to say it, because I don't think there's another way to say it. Everything will stop, and in that moment, in the darkness of that moment, you and Jesus will be alone together. And that's it. There won't be any steering wheel if you're driving. There won't be any microphone in front of you if you're doing a podcast. And that's going to really scare a lot of people. That's going to really scare a lot of people. The warning itself is painless. It's not supposed to be something that's going to cause any harm. It doesn't cause any physical harm. However, there are some people that will die of fright, that will die of heart attacks, because they just won't know what they're seeing. And in that moment, your conscience will be illuminated, meaning that you will then see yourself the way God sees you. There is some debate over whether you will see yourself in the sense of you will see yourself as the committer of sins as God sees you. You know, that let's say you went to confession. For a Catholic who goes to a confession, the theology of the confessional is that if you make a good confession and have perfect and near perfect contrition and do your penance, that your sins are torn and thrown away from God as far as the east is from the west, and he doesn't remember them anymore. It's as if they didn't happen. That's how powerful his sacrifice on the cross was, that his blood washes away and absolves us of our sins. It's through the blood of Jesus Christ that we are able to be absolved from these sins, because through that blood we are reconciled with the Father. We decide whether we're then going to move away from him and then coming back to him. We couldn't do that before the Christ sacrifice, but now we can. And so the sacrament allows us to do that. So there's some debate about whether, well, if you, let's just say you came right out of the confessional and this happened, would you see or experience yourself the way God sees you? As, you know, would you experience the sin the way God sees the sin that you commit? Some people say yes, some people say no, some people say it would be diminished in some way. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an idea. I don't think there's a consensus on that. But you will see yourself the way God sees you. And I would venture to say that if you are right with God, or, pretty much right with God, as right as you possibly could be with God, that would be more of an illumination for you of God himself. And you would see your relationship with him for what it truly is. And it would be the ultimate mind blow. It would be the ultimate existential experience. It would be the most experience. It would be the ultimate spiritual experience. It would be the ultimate of everything that you are experiencing at that moment. For those who are not right with God to varying degrees, you're going to experience and see your sin as God sees that sin. And it is going to horrify you, and it is going to disgust you. It is going to, the scales will fall off your eyes to where you will now see what sin truly is. Even the things that you didn't think that were that big of a deal, that they were just little small sins, how even those small ones so offended him and have put you away from him. And this will happen to everybody. It would happen to Kateri, who's 8. It would happen to the woman who just turned 100. It will happen to infants. Now, it'll happen to each person according to their state in life. Again, God's not trying to kill people, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to illuminate them. But whether you're right with God or not will depend in large part on how this is going to shake out for you. It will last maybe a few minutes. That's what seems to be the general consensus. And then it will end. And then once it ends, everything will resume. And ultimately, you'll be left with a choice about what you're going to do at that point going forward. Are you going to, again, choose a life that is consistent with that thing that you just experienced, or are you going to choose a life against it? I think, this is only my opinion, I think there are going to be 3 categories of people. There are going to be those, there are going to be those who experience this and have a complete conversion, even if you already kind of converted, and it'll only bring that to a higher level of conversion. You'll be more convicted of everything you've been convicted of. Like St. Thomas Aquinas, you'll say, everything I imagined up to this moment was mere straw. Like Mary and the experiment.
Yeah.
That's what color is. I understand it completely different now. That will be the enlightenment for you. A true spiritual enlightenment. And you will most likely have more of a reason to continue on your spiritual journey and enhance it. Commit more of your day to prayer, make yourself more of a servant of God. There will be those who I think have that experience, and after the experience go, my eyes have been opened. I am now going to change my life, and I'm going to move to God. And 6 weeks, 6 months go by, there's still video games to be played. There are still Netflix to be watched. There are still parties to attend or whatever. The different temptations of life, they don't even have to be that extreme. They can be small things that might slowly lead them away. Kind of like the way the seed falls on good soil and rocky soil. And they might just return to where they were. That would be a real shame, but I think that's going to happen. The third group is the scary group. The third group, I believe, are the ones that actually never doubted God existed to begin with. They now know even more that he existed. But the only difference is they hated him before when they knew he existed. And their hatred for him is so great that they are going to now increase that hatred even more after they know what they know. And for a lot of people listening, that's incomprehensible. Like, how could that possibly be the case? How could anybody possibly, I can see how maybe you could fall back into your old ways and stuff, but how could you consciously choose to hate God? And I'm reminded of Jesus's almost enigmatic description of that one sin that can't be forgiven, the sin against the Holy Spirit. A lot of people are like, what does that mean? What is a sin against the Holy Spirit? And I think a lot of people would say it's the sin where you, in full knowledge, turn your back on God. You don't just mess up and go, if I only knew, I never would have done that. but you, like Lucifer, fully turn your back. And like Lucifer, you are, quicker than lightning. He fell from heaven. You are basically in the same fate. And so then I think sides will be chosen, lines will be drawn. And if there's ever a time for somebody like an Antichrist to arise, it will be sometime after that. But those are my opinions. Want me to stop it all, or
no?
Any questions on this?
I'll go to the bathroom and keep going.
Okay. So this has been predicted by multiple people throughout the centuries, going back to the early church fathers, and even to very recently some of the more modern seers. In Saint Faustina, who is the one who brought the whole idea of divine mercy into the more modern light, with the Chaplet of Divine Mercy, the Image of Divine Mercy, which I have here, and I'll try to put up a clean copy of it on the screen. The Saint Faustina records in her diaries the messages that she received directly from Jesus when he would appear to her. And one of them was that there would be a time where everything would completely turn dark, and there would be appear in the sky the shape of the cross, and light would be emitted from where the wounds of the hands would be, and then everybody would see themselves in the light of God. That everybody would basically see themselves the way God sees them, the way I talked about it. There are a couple other ones too, but probably the most famous one is from 1961 to 1965. 4 young girls, they were 11 or 12 in 1961 when this first happened. The Blessed Mother appeared to them they were small little shepherd children, once again, remote shepherd children, a town of 300, in a place in northern Spain called Garabandal. And at Garabandal, they went much, much more into this idea of the warning. In fact, one of the girls knew when the warning was going to occur. They knew the date that it was going to occur. But besides the warning, Blessed Mother also told them about a thing called the miracle, and the sign that would be left after the miracle. The miracle is something that we don't know what it's going to look like, but there is supposed to be something that will happen after the warning that will be the most miraculous thing anybody has ever seen. It will happen supposedly at Garabandal. There are other seers who said that will happen at Garabandal, but it will also happen at places like where Our Lady of Guadalupe shrine is, and things like that. But anybody who's there will be instantly healed. It will be a miraculous sight. And then there will be a sign left, a permanent sign till the end of the world, they say, that people will be able to see. You can film it, you can see it, but you won't be able to touch it. And the primary seer in Garabandal, her name, she's still alive, Conchita, she said, the best I can describe it, it will be like a rainbow that you can see, you can film, you can take pictures of it, but you wouldn't be able to put your hand on it. And Conchita is the one that knows when the miracle and the sign are going to happen. And
are they still alive?
So 3 of them are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The one that knows when the warning is going to happen, she passed away. They are in their 70s now. Okay. But the thing that's really, really interesting about this is that the one that said she knew when the warning was going to happen, she said the warning will happen within 12 months of the miracle. In other words, the warning will happen and then the miracle. And that's the sequence, by the way. It's supposed to be the warning, then the miracle. And these things are going to happen according to the apparitions at Garabandal. These are not conditional prophecies. It's not, well, if you don't say the consecration to Russia, then this is going to happen. No, these will happen. But the third one in the sequence is conditional, and that is the great chastisement, or what will be the end of this age. And they make a distinction to say not the end of the world. This is not Jesus is not coming back for the second time, but it will be the end of this age. And the warning will happen within 12 months from the warning happening, meaning it could be the next day or 11 months and 31 days later. Mm-hmm. The miracle will happen. And if after that, if we've both experienced God within our souls and we've seen with our own eyes these miracles that the whole world can now see and broadcast and everything, and we still don't believe and we still don't go to God, then in some ways God has no choice. Mm-hmm. Then he has to chastise us. Now, Sister Lucia from Fatima would actually say that's the wrong way of talking about it. God's not punishing us. We're doing this to ourselves. And we're not doing it to ourselves in the sense of God goes, well, what am I else going to do? He goes, no, this is like the natural consequence of you choosing this lifestyle. You've chosen to live in such a squalor of sin that I'm kind of just letting it all happen. Mm. You know, if you make certain bad choices in life, those lead to a certain end. Mm-hmm. And that's really what this is. It's more of the natural consequence of the chastisement, if you will. Now, this chastisement is what lines up with Fatima. It's what lines with Our Lady of Akita who appeared in 1973, that said, fire will fall from the sky. A third of all humanity will be dead. The living will envy the dead because it will be that bad. The devil will take over, it will infiltrate the church such that cardinal opposes cardinal, bishop opposes bishop, and all these other things that we've talked about in the last show, and quite frankly are kind of happening right now. Mm-hmm. We're kind of living in that age. So how does this all relate to these times? And what I mean by these times, I mean within the next few years. Mm-hmm. Well, Conchita was told when the miracle would happen, and she was given a direction. She said, 8 days before the miracle is to happen, I want you to announce it to the world that it will happen. Not 8 days and then Conchita will know the date. She knows the date now. Mm-hmm. And she's supposed to announce it, and people have been trying to get it out of her. She goes, no, I have to wait. No, I have to wait. And she will announce it and say, in 8 days, the miracle will happen. Now, here's the thing. If the warning happens, if you buy into this sequence, if the warning happens anytime before the 8 days, you're going to kind of know when the miracle happens. Here's why. Not only will Conchita announce it, but she's given clues and she's let the cat out of the bag a little bit to where it's narrowed down to it's going to be on a Thursday. It's going to be on a Thursday that's not like Holy Thursday or Ascension Thursday or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a regular Thursday. It's going to be the feast of a martyr of the Eucharist, and it's most likely going to be in April. Okay, so that means it's probably not going to happen during Easter week, and in April, the miracle would have to happen most likely around the week after Easter. Yeah. Or that Thursday, maybe in the octave of Easter. And the Sunday after Easter, does anybody know what that is? Divine Mercy Sunday. Back to Saint Faustina. See, that all kind of ties in. Divine Mercy Sunday is the Sunday after Easter in the Roman Catholic Church. And if it's not Divine Mercy Sunday, it seems that this miracle will most likely be around that time. So the warning has to happen first. Some like Marie Julia Gehenny from the late 1800s to the 1900s had said the warning is going to happen in spring. It's going to be a time when the wheat is at its has not yet hit the third notch or the third node of wheat, which could happen anywhere between February to April. So it seems like the warning will happen and then the miracle will just kind of happen after that. My point is that once you know when the warning happens, you're going to know when the miracle happens, even before Conchita announces it. But Conchita's in her 70s.
Yeah, she doesn't have much time left.
She doesn't have much time left. Yeah. And if Conchita doesn't have a lot of time left,
we don't have a lot of time left. Because remember the sequence: warning, miracle, chastisement.
Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to be the day after, right? It doesn't mean it's going to be within 12 months.
Yeah.
It could be warning, miracle within 12 months, and chastisement in 5 years. I don't know what that is. Could be 50 years. Who knows?
Yeah, but like the very most, it's like 30 years. Or like the end, at the very end of the spec. I mean, if most people don't, most people live to like 74, and that's the average for men, and 76 for women, or something like that.
It's about the average lifespan.
Yeah. Let's say she lives to 100. I mean, that's at the very most. I'm being very like.
Yeah. Then you're I see. Yeah. Then you're looking less than 30 years.
Yeah. 30 years for the warning at the very most.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, 30 years for the warning. Mm-hmm. And because the miracle and the warning happened so close within a year, they're pretty much, they might as well be considered the same event for history's purposes. Yeah. So 30, you've got no more than 30 years for the warning. You've probably don't have 10 years. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't, nothing said that this will be Conchita's dying breath.
Yeah.
So it could be this year, and she lives another 30 years, right? Yeah. Too. So between the next moment when you're watching this and 25 to 30 years out, if these prophecies are true, and I'm not giving you all of the support for it, go on I'll put a link to Sister Anne's discussion on the warning, because she really goes into a lot of the seers and the saints who have talked about this, and she can give you all of you can watch all of that. You should watch it anyway. It's a really good video. So I'm not going to necessarily spend the time doing that, but that is what the warning is. And that's how the warning falls into this sequence. I'm going to go one step further to tie in Garabandal, which by the way has not been approved by the church as an apparition. Listen to Sister Anne's discussion about that, and she will, I think, make a good case as to why the bishop ruled the way he did. Also, some of the things that Garabandal has predicted that just haven't come true yet. So you can't say whether it's real or not, right? But Fatima and Akita, we know, are pretty much the same message. Joseph Ratzinger, when he was a cardinal, Pope Benedict XVI, when he was a cardinal, said as much because he had read the Third Secret of Fatima. But I had said in the last podcast that in 1929, Our Lady appeared to Sister Lucia and said, now is the time to ask the Pope to make the consecration to Russia to my Immaculate Heart. 1929. A year or so later, Jesus appears to Sister Lucia, kind of in a little bit of a, not really a ticked off mood, but a little bit impatient, and going, why haven't you guys done this yet? And he made this statement, and I'm going to paraphrase it. He said, woe to my ministers. And who are Jesus's ministers?
Priests,
the bishops, really the bishops and the Pope, right? The hierarchy of the church. Woe to my ministers if they don't do right what my mother told them to do, just as the kings of France did not do what I told them to do. They're going to basically suffer the same fate. Okay? Well, what does that mean? What did the kings of France do? Does anybody know when the French Revolution officially got started? The first one.
It wasn't right after our revolution.
1789. Yeah. Okay, 1789. In fact, June of 1789, I believe it was June, is when the Third Estate, which was kind of the middle class, there were the landowners and there was the monarchy and then there was the rest of the people, they rose up and declared themselves their own legislative body. Okay, and that's what began the French Revolution, and in then 1793, I believe, 1793, 94, the King of France lost his head. They killed him, and they killed a bunch of other people too. It was a bloodbath. It's terrible. I won't go into how that ties into other things like communism, although there are a lot of things to tie in there. But what's the story about the 100 years that I'm getting at with this 100 years? Well, in 1689, in June of 1689, Jesus appeared to a nun, and he said, I want you to go tell the King of France to consecrate France to my Sacred Heart. I want him to put it on the flag. I want him to use it as his battle emblem, but I want him to consecrate France. This was Louis the 14th. Louis the 14th did not do it. Louis the 15th became king. He did not do it. Louis the 16th became king. After 1789, he finally did it, but it was too late. It was too late. And he lost his head over it. Now, the funny thing is that third estate declaring itself to be, a legislative body and a national assembly, and it has political power, happened 100 years to the day that Jesus appeared to that nun and said, I want the King of France to consecrate France to my Sacred Heart. Now go to 1929, which is also in June, when our Blessed Mother says, I want you to consecrate Russia to my Immaculate Heart. And Jesus coming on the heels of that, kind of impatient, less than 2 years later going, you guys haven't done it yet. What's up with that? And woe to my ministers if they act like the kings of France. There's evidence in that, well, it's not dispositive, to suggest that 100 years after 1929, when his ministers were asked to do it, that's bad stuff's going to happen if the consecration of Russia hasn't happened. That's 1929. That's 9 years away. Okay. And even if it doesn't happen in 1929, if you look at the French Revolution time frame, you're looking at maybe a 4 or 5 year period to 2033, 2034, 2033. That's 2,000 years after
Christ died.
Oh yeah, that's right. Interesting. There's a couple alignments here.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that would really align with the Antichrist arising in this time of chastisement, at the height of this chastisement, material chastisement, in which the church is taking part of it as a false prophet. And the governments are aligning to these different things. And then finally them losing, obviously. There are some other things too, and I can go into a whole bunch of them, but just one, for instance, is one of the things that Mary says in an apparition is, scientists are going to tell you that the blood moon is just an astronomical phenomenon. And it is just an astronomical phenomenon. But my son uses these to tell you that things are going to happen. And she goes, beware the blood moon, because when you see the moon tint the color of blood, that's when it's right before it's going to get really bad. Okay. Or that's at the moment where it's getting really bad. Well, gosh. Okay. Well, we have a almost partial blood moon this November, at the end of November. So it could get really bad there. The end of May, 2022, you have your first full blood moon, the full lunar eclipse. And there's a couple more after that. These things happen, right? We see blood moons actually quite often. What's so important about 1929? If you look at, and I'll try to put this up on the screen, if you look at who in the world will see the full lunar eclipse, for each of those, it's pretty much like half the world, I'm sorry. Like Russia won't see it, but Europe and the United States will see it, or South America will see it, but 1929, and if I showed you the image, you'd go, oh my gosh. The entire world except for the Pacific Ocean will be seeing the full blood moon. Okay.
Wow.
I'm not saying it's going to happen then, but there's a couple things that align with this 1929 that, by the way, the time period between Our Lady appearing at Fatima and Our Lady of Akita appearing to Akita, if you take that exact time period of 56 years, add another 56 years, you get to 1929. Right? There's a couple different...
Gotcha.
You can do all these different things, if you will, to say 1929 keeps on coming around for some reason.
17 all the way down.
It is. It's 17. Yeah. It's 19. 19.
19. Yeah.
19. Yeah. So those are interesting things with 1929. I don't know what that means. If 1929 is when it's going to get bad, though, or start to get bad as the chastisement, that means the warning and the miracle are going to have to happen before then, and probably well before then. And that means probably in the next couple years, few years, you're probably looking at something before 2025. Here's the other thing. When Conchita was just the young girl and she found out about this warning and she found out what date it was going to happen, she ran into her house And she went and looked at the calendar. And the calendars back then, of course, had all of the saints on it. And it was the old calendar. Vatican II hadn't happened yet. It was just, the council had just started. And her aunt asked her, what are you doing? She goes, I'm trying to figure out, Our Lady told me the date when this thing is going to happen. And there's supposed to be a saint of the Eucharist, a martyr of the Eucharist, but I can't pronounce his name. So in other words, it's a hard name to pronounce. Yeah. Okay. So then I went back and said, who are all the Eucharistic martyrs? Mm-hmm. And who are all the Eucharistic martyrs who have a feast day in April? Mm-hmm. And who are and by the way, there's only one. Okay. Gotcha. And I can't pronounce his name either.
Gotcha.
He was a Visigoth. I don't know if I'm saying that right. The Visigoth, the pre-Spanish and the pre-French, in the early AD period. And he, during the Arian heresy, when everybody was pushing the Arian heresy, and his father imprisoned him. He was actually a prince of the Visigoths. I hope I'm saying that right. And his father, who was sent a Arian priest to give him communion, and he said, I won't take that communion because you don't believe that that's really Jesus Christ. And if I take that, I'm committing sacrilege because I'm participating in your sacrilege. And his father said, you're going to receive communion from this priest or you're going to die. And he goes, and I'm going to die. And he got his head cut off.
Wow.
Now his father actually converted a couple years later and stuff like that, which is really interesting.
Sorry, son.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah, it is pretty bad. It starts with an H and I can't say his name. Anyway, his feast day is April 13th.
So when is that on a Thursday?
2023. Next time it will happen will be 2034. So it could be either of those dates if I'm right on that. And by the way, the miracle will happen on a Thursday. And April 13th is not the Holy Thursday. And by the way, it is the Thursday after Easter, but before Divine Mercy Sunday.
Yeah.
And it is it's supposed to happen at 8:30 Garabandal time, which we're in Texas. That would be 6 hours ahead of us. Okay. So
it's like the middle of the night.
So it'll be 8:30. We'll be in the afternoon.
8:30 at night.
8:30. I'm sorry. Yeah, 8:30 at night on Thursday night.
Gotcha.
And it will be 2:30 our time in the afternoon that it would happen there. If it was going to happen in Mexico, it would happen at that time too. 2023, which means the warning, if those numbers are right, could be anytime between April 14th, 2022, up until
12 months. Yeah.
12 months, right? That's less than a year and a half away.
Yeah.
That's less than a year and a half away. And that's the Jack Manhire version. Okay. Could it be 2034? Sure. Conchita will be in her mid 80s, late 80s. Is it less likely? Yes. Is it less likely in my mind because of the 2029 stuff and all that type of stuff? Yes. It doesn't fit the paradigm. Now I realize I'm setting up the paradigm and it's not fitting my paradigm. But if I were a betting man, and I'm not, I would say April 13th, 2023 is most likely the date of the miracle, which would mean that the warning, the whole topic that we're talking about tonight would most likely happen sometime in 2022, the latter 3/4 of 2022 or early 2023. If Maria Jeheni is correct and it's supposed to be in more of the February, March, April, that means it would be spring of 2023. That's still
right before
it's right before.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That would be 2 years. I mean, that's 2 years from now.
Oh.
Now, folks like Sister Anne suggest that it could happen earlier. And I think she's making a calculation based off of a different date. I'm basing everything off of that April 13th date from the miracle and kind of working backwards and everything. But she says she believes that there's also evidence that it could happen this Lent. There are other seers who are convinced that it's going to happen before the end of this calendar year. Okay. So I'm not sure that it's as critical that we figure out the exact date. Okay. Hannah is now looking strangely into the camera, not into the camera, but
so okay?
card is full and it stopped recording.
Oh no. Why is it?
Did you dump it?
Yeah, I did. What time is it?
I didn't go on that long.
No way.
It's only 9 o'clock. We've been going a little over an hour, I bet.
I just noticed the red dot wasn't beeping. So I don't know how long it's been on.
Oh no.
You get partial video on this podcast.
All right, so
Yeah,
we'll
keep
continue.
rolling.
We'll continue with the audio. So our yeah. So if you didn't hear that, our SIM card
Yeah. SD card.
Our SD card died on the video.
Filled up, yeah.
So it filled up. So I'll keep going. If I can remember where I left off. So is it really important that we nail down the date?
No.
Is it really important that
Be
I don't?
prepared.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
why? Like, well, if it's 2 years, then that gives me 2 years of a pass.
Mm.
No. I think that it's the opposite. It's like you've got 2 years to really get serious about this. You've got 2 years to start training for the marathon, so to speak, right? And you got 2 years to get yourself right with God, even if you believe you're right with God.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some people say, "No, I'm good. Like I'm saved." And God bless you. And I'm not here to judge you. You know, you probably are. But if you're like me, you realize that you still got a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
You still got a lot of work to do, even if you believe that you are on the right path, even if you believe that you've made progress. There's still much, much more to go until you get to perfection. Other people might be saying, "Why are you trying to get to perfection? That seems unrealistic." Well, the guy that I follow, his name's Jesus, he said, "Be ye perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect." In other words, he told us to strive for perfection.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say, by the way,
If you don't get there,
you're out.
yeah.
You're right? But that was the aspirational goal that he laid
Yeah,
out.
And that's what most of, I'd probably argue to say all the saints, their whole thing was basically strive for perfection, but then at the same time they're like, I am the worst sinner
Right.
of all, and
Right.
I need God's mercy more than anybody.
Right.
And I want to be perfect, but at the end of the day they resign while striving, still don't put themselves in the, well, I'm probably close. It's the,
Yeah.
no, I'm not even 1%,
Right.
and have mercy on me, Lord.
Right. I'm not even sure I'm going forward.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
I'm trying. I'm
Mhm.
trying. Yeah, absolutely will. And so if you want to be perfect, which would be a saint,
Yeah.
like as you said in the last podcast, that just means somebody we know is in heaven.
Mhm.
You've got to be pretty good. If the church says we know they're in heaven.
Yeah.
What do you have, 2 years to get there? So if you're one of the folks listening to this that are saying, I've been considering this whole Jesus stuff, or I'm considering getting back, into my faith, or I'm considering taking the next step in my faith, or I'm considering engaging in the sacraments and I haven't done that before. I'm just considering becoming a Christian or a believer in God. Now is the time to say, I'm committed to that path, even if you're not sure of the answer to some of the questions that you have, even if you're not really sure if God exists, even if you're not really sure, what's going to happen or the dates are. Now's the time to start spending time thinking about that more deeply. I can tell you, and I think everybody around this table can probably tell their own story, that once you start that journey of saying, I'm going to just start thinking about this a little bit more, spending more time with it,
Yeah.
making it more part of my life, the answers start to come.
Yeah.
You'll only be able to look back on it a year or two later and go, oh wow, look at the big distance. I can't believe how far this has taken me. But it will come. It will come. And it might take 2 years to get to the point where you're even comfortable seeing Jesus. Now, because we're only on audio, and at this point you're probably just seeing images, I will definitely put it up for you. But this is the other Jack Manhire theory, is that this image, this divine mercy image of Jesus in the darkness with the Jesus I trust in you signature. He signed it that. He goes, have the painting signed by me, Jesus I trust in you. I was meditating on this image one day at 3:00 during the Divine Mercy Hour, and I was thinking to myself, why did he want everybody to see this image? Because he told Saint Faustina, have this painted to what you see, and spread it. Everybody needs to see the image. He even gave certain things, like saying, if you venerate this image, I'm going to give you the graces that you're not going to suffer the fire of hell. Of course, we always have to cooperate with those graces, but
it's not a free pass.
It's not a free pass, but it's a pretty good pass. It's a pretty good ticket.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good ticket. In other words, I have to look at an image of Jesus, venerate it, which means give it honor, pay it respect, and that's a pretty good reward for that. And I was thinking to myself, why? Why? That doesn't make any sense. And then I thought of this. What if, when the warning happens, this is exactly what you see? In the darkness of your soul, when it's just you and Jesus, this is who you will see coming towards you in the darkness, with the streams of mercy coming from his heart, the blood and water, which was the mercy that came forth from his heart in the crucifixion, coming forth to both cleanse you with the water of baptism and to sanctify you, to make you holy, and to forgive you of your sins through the precious blood. We are still in the age of mercy, and we have been so for 2,000 years. But soon the age of judgment will come, and that's going to be different. He even told Saint Faustina, I want everybody to come through the door of mercy to me. But if they don't, they're going to have to come to me through the door of judgment. There's no third door. And I thought maybe that's why he wanted everybody to see the image, so
they
that,
recognize it,
so that when you're in the darkness, scared to death, and you see this being coming at you, you'll say, Jesus, I trust in you.
Yeah.
I trust in you. I know you. I know this. I'm not afraid. I trust in you. And that whole idea of be not afraid. And from the trust can come, I believe, this idea of us not being afraid. Now, that's the Jack Manhire theory. I haven't heard anybody else say that.
I think it's a pretty good theory.
So I choose to believe that I will most likely see the image of Jesus that looks like this divine mercy image when the warning happens. I happen to believe that it will happen. I do believe that the warning is going to be a real thing. I've been red-pilled on that, and if I believe that, then I, of course, am going to believe the rest of Garabandal as well. So that's my exposition on the warning, and I know some people are tired tonight, but I really felt like this was the total dad show.
So, it's totally fun.
What else you got? What else we got? And it doesn't be different. I mean, what are your thoughts about this? Hearing this, Will, you and I have talked probably a lot about this over the last couple of years, and you've done your own reflection on it. Mike, I think you and I have talked about it a little bit, but I don't know if after this part of the show, there's been anything new that you've learned, or any new thoughts you have.
I don't know. It's mostly just something how to phrase this. It makes more sense now. We have talked about it very briefly, and I haven't done too much of my own research into it, but it's more reassuring, or
reaffirming.
Reaffirming, that's the best way to put it. Of, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll describe it. Other things we talked about, and the same thing, that it doesn't really matter what day it comes or even what it really looks like, as much as it would make sense if it's the Divine Mercy image. It could be whatever it is, and at that point, it's more just try your best to be ready.
Right.
And I guess that's pretty much the end goal of all of this, or the message, the theme.
This episode feels a lot more reflective than it does conversational, and I think that's kind of fits the vibe of the topic too.
Of the message.
Yeah, so I'm really cool with asking Hannah and leaving it at this, because I have nothing else to contribute really other than I agree, and I think it's something for everybody that listens to this to just kind of sit with and go through it with themselves.
Yeah, because Hannah, I was not going to leave you out.
Yeah, you're next.
Because you and I have not talked about the warning at all. I don't think personal one-on-one we've talked about it. Maybe through Will some stuff's happened, but first of all, I'm assuming that you paid attention and didn't fall asleep through this hour when I was prattling on. What are your thoughts as somebody that I haven't talked to this a lot about? I don't know if you've thought about this a lot, or if you've
No, very little.
Yeah. So you've got the best position to say the old man's crazy, because these guys
He's
are
not.
No, he's not. So
I agree that it's very, very reflective episode in a good way. It definitely made me think, and I'm sure viewers as well, about whether I'm ready or not, and the answer is a hard no.
Yeah.
Which is kind of scary.
Yeah.
But that's what needs to happen. It's interesting. I don't really know where to go from here. Except
Your microphone's backwards, so try to stay on this side of it. It's just because of the way it's turned. It's fine. Just try to stay on that side of it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
I think that's really insightful. I'm always amazed at how poorly I remember my own experiences, and I am always just caught up in my own present me. So, for example, I spent last spring, the COVID shutdown time, and I was in this closet a lot because I was quarantined, twice because we didn't know what I had since I was sick. I spent most of that spring scared to death. Absolutely scared to death. Not that I thought the warning was going to happen that night. I wasn't like that. But like you said, Hannah, it was a hard no for me too, going, I'm not ready for this. Not only am I not ready to make an account of this, an account to God of myself, but I've made some bad decisions in my past, and I've hurt a lot of people, I mean, I don't know. We could argue what a lot is, but I have. I have. And I am now going to have to relive all of that. Maybe not even relive it, but live it for the very first time, seeing it through their eyes and what my actions did that were wrong. If I'm truly going to see myself through how God sees me, it's going to be through all time, at least through my lifetime. It's and that scared the crap out of me. And I would lay here and I would have these kind of mini warning experiences. I found myself, now clearly I had predisposed myself to it, but I found myself remembering things from my past when I was maybe around your age that I completely forgot about. I mean, if someone had talked about it, I'd be like, what are you talking about? And it just would flood back into my mind. And for the very first time, I would see it as not from my eyes, but from somebody else's eyes. And I felt so bad. I felt so bad for what I had done. And by the way, I didn't kill anybody. I didn't, I'm talking, and I didn't, if I even told you what these things were, you'd be like, well, that's not a very big deal.
Yeah.
But I really hurt some people, right? I mean, I really, for whatever reason, like maybe I wanted to go to a dance, so I, got friendly with the girls so that I could go with her because she's the only way I could go to the dance, because that way I could wear my new uniform. You know what I mean? Well, she thought I really liked her. That's really bad.
Yeah.
That's really bad. That's really harmful. Now, I didn't think I was using her or anything.
Yeah.
It was just going to a dance and we were just friends, but I don't think she thought that, One example, again, I didn't kill anybody, but these things really sat, and it was a hard no. It was a really hard no. And so I had to sit with those things for a while, and I had to make peace with them. And in that weird kind of looking back way, I can say now that I'm not afraid for this to happen. Not because I've done anything different. I think it's a grace, but having sat with it and reflected upon it, and asked for the grace, said, please give me the grace to be ready because I can't do it on my own. I kind of think that happened because I find myself not afraid anymore. I find myself, as we were saying before the show, Mike, like Can it happen tomorrow? Can we get on with it already?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get this thing going, right?
Yeah, I feel that way probably from a different standpoint. Just because I've had high anxiety my entire life.
Right.
And I found that the best way for me to get through anything that I'm even mildly concerned about is to just rip the Band-Aid off. Like,
right. Let's
just do it. Let's just get it done with. Not because I just want it to be over, but
right.
I'm not going to be sitting in okay, what's going to happen and how's this going to... Like, I have the tendency to try to plan things out to soothe my anxiety. Like, okay, if this is going to happen, how am I going to react here? And go through, like, situations and stuff like that. Not even, like, a lot. It's just... Like, that's my natural reaction to, if I know that this is going to happen, how can I try to have not control over the whole situation, but at least control over myself? You know, like, how am I going to react if this happens? How would I react to that? Like, everybody does that when they're laying in bed at night. But, so yeah, I see it from that standpoint as, it'd be great if it happened tomorrow, because I could experience it and not have to go and kind of just see what everything is and go, okay, well, that's the truth, and I need to go from here for it. Go from here. But I'm also not too, like, I'm not terrified of it, because I've equally done bad things. I think everybody has, to an extent. But it's more just, like, I guess, trusting in mercy, that if I'm repentful of it, and which I am, and it's more that there's like this yearning in me that I want to get closer to God, and this almost seems like a fast track. Like, for all the things where I'm like, I wish I could just sit with you and, like, be with you, kind of things, where I'm praying and I'm like, I want to just be closer. Like, I feel so distant. Even when I'm, like, in really good prayer and in really good meditation, I'm like, I want to sit with you and talk to you, or I guess feel your company. More. So this seems like a really good opportunity, or at least one of the opportunities, before the eternal opportunity, I guess, to have that and to understand and to go, this is what you are, and this is what this is, and this is what this relationship is, and this is what it should be. This is how it is now. That's a really good way of, I'd never thought about that. That's a really good way of, it's an interesting way of thinking about it. Of furthering the relationship. Yeah, exactly. And I've always thought about it more as the final exam. No, gotcha. See, I want this before the final exam. That's why I'm kind of right about it too. That's why I like your way of thinking about it. I don't want to go in blind. I'd prefer to be like, okay, so I have a little bit better understanding, so that, and that's the whole point of the illumination of consciousness. It's an act of mercy to help you. For that. It's hey, let's before the door of judgment. Intervention before the door of judgment. Let me help you, right? Let me give you what you might need to do that, right? I think Kateri might have something that she wants to say. Am I getting the signals correctly? And I just pray I die before the age of mercy is over. That's right. That's part 2. Yeah. Part 2. Right. Go ahead, Kateri. Just talk right into the microphone. I think that everybody is right, and I also want to say that I really liked how you guys been doing your podcasts, and since I've only been one, I've liked how this is going, and I hope to be in more. So. Oh, thank you, Kateri. Yeah, that was so sweet of you. Thank you. I'd love for you to be in more. Yeah, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. Thanks for sharing that, honey. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Kateri's 8, and are you in 2nd grade or 3rd grade? 2nd grade. 2nd grade. Dad, I'm in 8th grade. I don't know. The way she talks, I didn't. Maybe she was in 8th grade. Yeah. That's great. I'm in 8th grade. I love you, Kateri. That was very sweet. Thank you. Thank you very much. So there are some people who have said this is going to be a second Pentecost, the warning, and that was interesting. It hit me. I said, second Pentecost. How is that? And Hannah, you just did a whole session on Pentecost yourself, right? And the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And the whole idea of Pentecost was for the apostles who didn't know what the heck they were supposed to do next, right? And they didn't really understand things as deeply. They didn't know color. Even though color was staring them in the face with Jesus, they didn't know it on the inside of their hearts. It took the Holy Spirit and that illumination to them of
what was demanded of them for who they were and why they were chosen for a specific task, and gave them the gifts to do that. So I think as a second Pentecost, it ties into Sister Anne's conference that the second Pentecost might be for those who are not necessarily ready, but they're not completely lost afterward, to have to then have the gifts given to them so they can help the neighbor who does find themselves lost, who is struggling now, that this amazing thing has happened to me and I don't know what to do with it. I don't know to be afraid. I don't know to be happy. I don't know what to do. Help me. And this is, aside from the 18-hour-a-day confession lines, which will also happen, there will also be reaching out to go, what do I do next? And I just don't think there are enough religious people who have given themselves over into a religious profession, whether they be priests or pastors or deacons or somebody in a spiritual leadership role. I don't think there are enough of them. And so I think it's going to be up to us. And now, in saying that, I know I'm assuming that I'm going to be okay. Maybe I'm the one that's going to need the help. Yeah. But I mean, I think there are going to be people that are called to help those, much like the apostles were called, and they were given the gifts that they needed to make God's will happen. And so, in that way, I can understand this idea of a second Pentecost. I don't think theologically it's the same thing, but I think it might end up being something like that.
Interesting.
I think so. And the other thing about why this is the time frame. The time frame as to why the warning is upon us, besides Conchita's age, which I think is the big one, right? Is that Conchita said, I believe it was to her aunt again, when she was talking about the warning, when she was talking about the name she couldn't pronounce, right? April 13th. And she was saying, Our Lady said that after communism came again, the warning would happen. And the aunt goes, what do you mean communism comes again? Remember, this is 1961.
Yeah, it's like we're still in communism.
Right.
Yeah.
1961, Soviet Russia was still going. Whoever was communist. There was no fall of communism at that time. She goes, what do you mean comes again? She goes, well, like it comes back. She goes, mean like it returns? She goes, yeah, it returns. She goes, but returns from where? She goes, I don't know. She just said, when communism comes again, that's when it's going to happen. Well, there are a few different things. Number one, there was a famous communist leader of Spain. Okay, and he was kind of not really a dictator, not really. He was communist. He fell in the 40s, I believe. Maybe it was a little later or earlier, but in January of 2020 of this year, the equivalent of like the president, the prime minister of Spain, is a member of the Communist Party. In other words, the communists are now back in charge of Spain. Communism, in effect, has returned.
Yeah, and it's flooding into America.
To Spain. So even if you're just being very provincial about Conchita's ideas of communism returning, that did return in that small way. But then you take other seers who have heard Our Lady say stuff like, America will become communist without becoming communist, which to me means it will be a communist de facto, if not de jure. That it might not be the won't be
the
red.
The zeitgeist is communist.
It might not be the sickle on the flag or anything, but yeah, you're right. The movement, stuff like that. It could also mean, of course, that Russia and China in their alliance are going to make moves. Everybody always jumps to the war situation, right, where people are going to invade and it's going to be Red Dawn. That could very well happen. But I don't think it has to happen for communists to come again, to return. And I don't know that it has come again yet. There are people like Sister Anne who will do more of the zeitgeist argument like you did, Will, that said No, it has. I'm not talking about political communism. I'm talking about the societal communism.
Yeah.
That is the atheistic communism. That has returned, and we can't deny it. It's within our culture. It's within our society. For me, I think for Conchita to say that, it might be less subtle than that and more direct and concrete. So
I also think it feels pretty at least to me, it feels pretty concrete in America right now. I mean, we have people
it's in a pretty strong direction.
Yeah,
going
exactly.
it.
So if we're not there
this time
yet,
last
it's like,
year,
I see it.
would you have said that this time last
No.
year? Okay, so this time last year, I think it was would have been a subtle argument to make.
Right now,
But
I'm like,
now,
yeah, we're like 10%.
we're like in the middle of the Bolshevik Revolution.
Yeah, exactly.
We're
We're on the way.
That's
Yeah.
right. This is the new Red October, right? Because it was October of 1917 that the Bolsheviks took Russia, and the communist revolution began in Russia. It was the same month of the miracle of the sun. Yeah, we're kind of there in a lot of ways, and that's just America. But is it also in the other parts of the world? I don't know. Is New Zealand and Australia?
I don't know, but it also seems like there's a lot of world governments that are going towards this globalization of
the UN and Britain and stuff.
but that, and also like this whole idea of universal currency and all this stuff that's coming out, that China's trying to make deals with other countries, and I don't know. It just kind of seems like the world's like, let's do global communism. It kind of seems like we're moving towards Star Trek 2 or the Next Generation.
Yeah, right. I'm somebody who probably a year ago would be the wrong time, but definitely 2 years ago would have said, you guys are just a bunch of conspiracy theorist whacks. Like, you guys are just looking for bad things to happen. It's not happened with this one world government stuff, the UN's the one world government and the Pope's the Antichrist and everything. I don't think the Pope's the Antichrist, but I do have to look back as someone who is critical of that to say, the evidence has now convinced me more the other way. That no, actually, I can't deny the fact that the folks who have the money and the power in the world are moving us toward this idea of a one world government. The Pope is certainly moving us toward the idea of a one world religion. And the words one world government, one world religion, those are trigger words for conspiracy theory. But put whatever words you want in there. It is moving toward that. People are calling for it. People are now calling for it as the only solution to the quote unquote existential crisis of climate change.
Yeah.
Now, what I think is interesting, although certainly not funny, is that, no, the climate is changing and natural disasters are occurring, but it's not for the reasons that most people think. It's it's because these were the things that were predicted that would happen in these times. And that was one of the signs that Jesus said, when these things start to happen, you will know that you are in the end times.
Yeah, buckle up, boys.
Buckle up, boys. And so now you got to look at it through the lens of, these things are happening. He said they were happening. He had talked about the one world government without using that term. That's happening. How much longer can I possibly keep denying these things as a reality? So, the climate's changing. The climate might be the thing that kills us, but it won't be because, there's too much lead in your gas. It won't be. Or if that is a contributor, that is something that is part of the entire thing that we are creating.
This giant chaos.
But it's
theory
not. But it's not just the man creates Earth, man kills Earth. No. It's the spiritual. The spiritual carbon footprint, if you will, of our sin, that is just, if not more, at fault as the physical things that we're doing. In many ways, like when Nancy Pelosi says, or Pope Francis says, Mother Earth is crying out. They're not wrong, but they're not crying. They're not crying out because you don't have solar panels up.
Yeah, and it's not Pachamama.
No, it's not. But the Earth is crying out because it doesn't recognize us as people anymore. We've become these terrible creatures that are so out of whack with creation through our sin, not through some new age thing.
Yeah.
That these are the natural consequences. Well, we're not that connected with the environment and stuff like that. You can't say that, Jack. Just because we decide to do something, you say it's a sin. Well, okay, but is it really that much of a leap from you saying everything that I do, from my breathing to the amount of cows that fart to the cars that we have to the power stations to everything else, that we're that connected with the earth, that is the cause of all of this? Is it that much of a leap to say, and all of our other decisions too, that don't necessarily have a gaseous emission may in fact be also contributing to it? I don't think it's that crazy to fit it into that framework. So when communist comes again is the other thing Conchita said. And if we were looking around right now and it was the days of Ronald Reagan, I would say, well, I mean, communism is over there. Yeah. It's not coming again. It's way over there.
Bring Ronald back.
But now, I'd say 2020, it's not as subtle. It's not as subtle. So buckle up. Yeah. Could be 2034. I don't think so. I think it's going to be more 2023 as the miracle date to go off of it. But it could be tomorrow. Some people criticized me once for a comment that said, but wait a second, Jesus said, nobody will know the time or the hour, not even the Son will know, only the Father knows. That's absolutely true, but he was talking about the end of time. No. We're not talking
the last judgment.
Right, the second coming, right, that type of thing. We're not talking about that here. We're far off from that.
Yeah.
That's something else that would happen, okay? What we're talking about here is really something that was prefigured in the fall of the Temple of Jerusalem in AD 70.
This is like a Noah's Ark situation.
Yes. It's much more of a Noah's Ark situation, or again, the fall of Jerusalem and the dispersion of the Jews after the fall of the temple. Something really bad is going to happen. And just like he said to them about the fall of the temple, when these things occur, run to the hills. You get ready. He said that about these times. Now, I don't think Christ in one breath would have said, nobody knows the time or the hour. And when you see these things happen, it's about to happen.
Yeah.
So clearly he was talking about two different things. Okay. And he was talking about the end of time versus this type of Noah's Ark.
End of the ages.
End of the age. Yeah. Right. The end of the age of mercy, perhaps, right? The end of this age, whatever that means.
What I do find interesting is how...
So get ready. He wants us to be ready. He's leaving us hints, right?
I think it's also interesting that it kind of, at least for me, and I think you guys might agree, that in 2019, everybody's like, man, 2020 is going to be a wild year, and we don't know why yet. And then 2020 hit, and within like 2 months, everything just got flipped upside down into oblivion.
And this year,
we're still riding it out. And this might just be the prequel.
This year showed us that so much can happen so quickly that it's really hard to plan.
This was
even conceive of
year.
Of what could be, or how drastic a year can.
A month could change. A day.
That's just it. The year itself, I mean, it goes in these month segments, and there's this great YouTube 3-parter by a Canadian comedian. I forget your name. I think it's Julie. Sorry, Julie. But she goes back. Her April self, 2020, goes back to her January 2020 self, but without telling her what happens because of the butterfly effect. She's just saying like, "Hey, get ready." And then June Julie visits the April Julie. Then October Julie visits the June Julie, and each time you can see it just getting. I mean, it's the slope of the slide down into the abyss is getting sharper and sharper each time, to where the April one was saying, "I know, it's crazy, man. We're all locked down," and the June one's going, "You don't know the half of it. You don't know what's going on." And October one is like her hair is sticking up. She's smoking a cigarette, going, "It's bad." One of the funny parts is when the June one goes to the April one. She goes, "Okay, I can't remember where you are. Have you started the bread making phase yet?" She goes, "Oh yeah, I have my own sourdough starter." Well, you and everybody else. She goes, "Have the murder hornets started yet?" And the April one goes, "Murder hornets? That's not a real thing. That's not a real thing." And she looks at her. She goes, "What? Murder hornets? What the heck? What is happening?" And I think it really captured this idea that you're talking about, that within a period of a few months, it's absolutely crazy. And what's January 2020, Australian wildfires and
California wildfires.
January 2020, Australian wildfires and Soleimani.
Mm-hmm.
There were missiles that were fired on an Allied base. Gosh.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that happened, didn't it?
Yeah.
And I remember in January thinking this is going to be some of the defining stuff of 2020. I mean,
Not even
could be
close,
that.
boys. Buckle up.
I'm like, you'd think they might be, but no.
World War III.
Not even
we're
close.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And this year has flown by for me. It's both at times felt like eternity, but then also like when I think about it's flown by in a weird in a weird way, in like a slow fast way. That January seems like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But at the same time 2019 didn't feel that long ago.
Yeah.
No,
Like, it
yeah,
felt like a week ago. Like 20. We only have
And it's already
three
almost
months
Christmas,
left in
and then it's
2020.
2020, yeah.
What?
Right.
You know?
Right.
But yeah, at the same time, when the quarantine started and everything like that,
like, man,
it was like that felt like so long ago.
Because so much has changed.
So much has happened.
So much has happened. But yeah, it was a year ago.
What a
Less than a
year.
year ago that we went down to the monastery in the
Wow.
desert.
But see that
doesn't
felt
seem,
like that
doesn't
felt
seem
like,
far away.
No.
that felt like so close.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
that just happened.
Yeah.
Like, well, that happened in August. Like, no, that happened
Yeah.
last November.
yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
but you're right.
Yeah,
That
and
was
my
before all
accident
this.
felt like a year, like a long time. First, it felt like 10 years ago to me.
Right.
Then it also feels like, oh yeah, like that really just had like
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
That was not long when I was going to PT.
It's a little year.
Yeah.
A year ago, you were doing. Yeah.
Uh-huh. But now I'm also. But so much has changed, both from a faith, like a personal faith perspective, and from just a global events perspective.
Right.
Yeah, and just a total life change, like adjustment for me. That yeah, this whole last year, from like right now, or I'd say probably from July of 2019 to July 2020, has been the longest and shortest year of my life. It's like I don't know. It's like this super paradoxical for me.
I think the funny part is that everybody listening completely gets that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I know what you mean,
Yeah.
Will.
Yeah.
It's not just you.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're not alone, not to the same extent as you,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
in a different way. But they probably feel the same way. So those are the highlights of the warning. Again, I can do more, but I would recommend doing a YouTube search on the warning. You can get some good videos. Again, Sister Anne at houseofmaryomd.org. She has a good video on warning, illumination of conscience. And there's some other folks that have some good write-ups on it. You can get it on, you can see it on Google. There are some Garabandal documentary videos on YouTube. I don't necessarily recommend watching the dramatized version of Garabandal because you're not going to learn that much about any of this. It was a good movie. I just don't think they really went into a lot of this stuff. But some of the documentaries go into it quite well. So that's the warning. And
that was a good episode.
I think it was, yeah. So I hope it was
a good
informative.
At least for me.
It was, yeah, I think it was reflective. And I think, thank you for all the contributions. And we talked not only about the warning, we also talked about the miracle. We got into some of the chastisement. We got into some of the timelines. What's next for us to talk about that's we think is really important? Is it
aliens?
Is it some of the? Well, we could do that.
I am curious to do this room's perspective, because I think it's been years since we've talked about things like this. Not Bigfoot, but aliens specifically. I think
Because we all know Bigfoot's
Yeah,
real.
exactly.
We all know.
I do think it would make an interesting podcast to take all of our different perspective on aliens, because
Yep.
I don't know. Like I flip flop on things.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know. I don't know. I think it'd be an interesting discussion.
That probably would be.
Yeah.
That would be one of those interesting discussions around the table that you wish you had recorded.
Yeah.
If we start talking.
Yeah, I
about
think
it.
we should do one of those next.
Yeah.
Then we can go back into some religious stuff or World War III. But
Yeah.
I
yeah.
think I do want to do. I've been after the Bigfoot one. I thought I really want to know everybody's perspective on aliens, because
All right.
I just think because there's also been a lot of stuff coming out in the news lately.
Yeah.
The CIA has been putting out. Or the Pentagon has been
It's
putting
the
out.
Pentagon,
Yeah.
the leaked 2017 videos of those, and you can clearly see they're flying objects,
Yeah.
and the Pentagon's, we don't know what they are, and they're doing weird things that advanced physics,
Yeah,
as
exactly.
Mr. Ballen would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is some stuff that goes, whoa, like you will. I flip flop on this a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't have to be completely devoid of religion, because I think a very interesting question
Yeah.
that people would have would be, well, if that were true and aliens were to land on the White House lawn, how would that affect your faith?
Yeah.
You know, would it affect your faith?
I think
and
about
if
this all the
so,
time.
and if so, how? And I think that that's probably
Are
a
the
real.
Mormons right?
The Scientologists are right.
Well,
right?
yeah, that but
we
also,
all dumped into the volcanoes for the B-52 bombers.
that, but also, is there like multiple
Right.
planets with multiple? Yeah.
Right. We'll get your own. You
That
get
was
your
a
own
joke.
planet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, we need to get Duke Cannon to be a sponsor of this show.
Oh, that's right. Duke,
I've been looking at this entire time, and I have to say, every time I see this box,
the camera went out. Yeah. Darn it.
it's my favorite box
I love it.
I've
I
ever
love it
seen.
so
Not even for a
much.
soap. It's just naval supremacy, and
Yeah.
it's a soap scent.
Yes.
Like, this is the smell
The
of
smell of
naval
victory.
supremacy.
Proper hygiene is the key to a healthy Navy. Clean up with the big A brick of soap from Duke Cannon.
Victory
I
is
just
in
think
your
the idea
hands.
of the smell of naval supremacy
The smell of naval
is
supremacy.
is some of the most 1940s masculine, like,
Oh, absolutely.
manly. This smells like naval supremacy, boys. Kind of.
It's like the line from Apocalypse Now. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
exactly.
It smells like victory.
Yeah.
I like how the back says Duke Cannon isn't for everyone.
Right. That's right. Duke Cannon, quite frankly, he prefers it that way.
Yeah.
No, it's total John Wayne.
Yeah,
it's
Ron
total.
Swanson even. I don't know if you've seen- I love it.
It's
such a good box.
it's a total
Man's man.
man, and I don't care what you think.
Yeah, exactly.
Gregory Peck showing you the business end of his shoe,
Yeah.
something like that. Robert Mitchum fighting it with his shirt off or something.
Yeah, it's good.
So Duke Cannon, I love your soap products. I haven't used.
I don't
many.
use it, but I would love to if you give me some.
Yes, I would.
If you can-
Yes, if Duke Cannon, we're giving you a free pitch here, but we would be happy to do some product reviews.
Yeah, so happy to.
on your different products, maybe your beard oils,
Yes.
maybe your mousses or
Yeah.
hair products.
You don't even have to pay us. Just send us products.
We'll be happy to review and give an honest review.
Yeah.
Because I do love your soap. The Naval Supremacy soap is
Totally unbiased.
completely unbiased.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. I might hate your beard oil.
Yeah, that's true.
Your beard oil might,
Yeah.
you know,
How much beard oil do you use, Dad?
not as much as I should.
Gotcha.
I do use beard oil, but
I didn't know if you did.
I mean I don't use it at a regular basis, but I hear that I should use it more because it's healthier for your skin and for your beard and everything. So I do have some,
Gotcha.
and then wow.
It sounds oily.
What?
I don't even mean that like to be joking. It sounds kind of
Greasy.
Greasy. Yeah.
Well, so it
Kinda
can.
dirty.
So if you do it right, I found because I'm late to this game. If you put like one or two little squirts, and you with a beard my length, if you really just work it in, it doesn't feel greasy at all, and it just
hydrates it.
it hydrates it, and then your skin. Like I have a lot of dandruff from my chin, believe it or not. You know, and so what I have to do is not put 4 squirts, because you do that, and then it is like you're putting olive oil on your face or something like that, or some type of essential oil on your face, and it does feel wet and greasy. So there is a balance you have to find.
Gotcha.
But it is supposed to be healthy for you. So Duke Cannon, we would love to hear from you. Brant Petrie, we're still waiting for you to contact us. MrBallen did contact us and got back to us and gave us a big thumbs up support. Thanks for the support type of thing.
Mr. Ballen, if you want to be on the Alien Show,
yes, MrBallen on the Alien Show would be awesome.
that would be. We should reach out to him again.
We should, although we know his position.
Yeah, he's firm believer.
He's firm because it's undeniable that UFOs. He would say undeniable that UFOs exist.
See, I would agree with that.
He did not say that aliens. He didn't,
I'd agree with that. It's we'll say this for the podcast, but a little prelude, I guess.
Oh, teaser.
Little tease. Yeah, I do agree. It's undeniable that there are unidentified flying objects flying around Earth.
Well, with the Pentagon release, we know it's true.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't identify them.
Yes.
They would never lie to us.
So no, but I don't. Yeah. But I don't even worry about that. It's more of like, well, is it China? Is it aliens? Is it us in the future? Like what? Right. There's so many things that I wonder about.
Could be some cool things. And then I have gotten questions about, well, how, what if they're aliens? You just don't think they're aliens because of your religious views. You're not open-minded. I'm like, no, I'm not really open-minded. I won't tell you what I think about aliens or how it would affect my faith. I'll save it for the next show. But I do have an answer. I do.
Yeah, I would like to hear that.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of the Mr. Ballen stuff because even that one we listened to in Florida, the one dude that got abducted in the middle of the field and came back 2 weeks later.
Travis.
That one.
Yeah.
That one. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, Travis Walton.
I want to listen to this 3 hours of this episode.
Travis. So, Fire in the Sky is the movie that was made that dramatized that
I didn't know
event.
they made a movie about it.
Yeah, it was a little while ago. I don't know. I never saw it. But I do know that
research.
DB Sweeney, I think, stars as Travis Walton.
I don't know who that is. But
Well, you'll find out when you.
Cool. Well, there was also the other video Mr. Ballen did about the guy who had the farm or had his cattle. And all his cattle he found with
Skinwalker Ranch. That's still a thing.
Yeah,
Skinwalker Ranch is still a thing.
Yeah. We'll have to talk about this next.
We got more stuff.
Yeah,
we're going to have to go back and do some Ballen research.
We are.
And then we're going to have to go and do a rip off of Mr. Ballen.
Yeah, we are.
Because those are the top podcasts that do score best.
Let's tweet at Mr. Ballen and just ask him.
Mr. Ballen,
we're doing a alien episode.
Right.
Send us all of your information on it.
Or just would you like to Zoom for a little bit?
Would you like to be on the pod? How many podcasts, Mr. Ballen, have you been on?
Yeah,
John. Seriously, I'm asking you right now.
Yeah,
John Allen. How many podcasts have you been invited on? We're inviting you.
Please come on.
Please.
We're huge fans.
Please. You're pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your kid can be on too.
Yeah,
Mr.
sure.
Ballen Jr.
Yeah, whatever you want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll see. So that was enough sycophantic pleading.
Yes.
I think Kateri wants to say something.
Okay, Kateri, please save us from ourselves.
Okay.
It's going to be more Mr. Ballen.
Talk on the other side, yeah.
I do think that we should make another one.
Okay.
And about that.
Okay.
And I would like just to say that I think that Mr. Ballen's shows and episodes are very good.
Yes.
So I think we should include him
Okay.
onto a podcast.
Will you call him for us?
Yeah. Do you have his
Well,
number?
I don't, and I don't have a phone. I do, but
Okay.
it's not on service.
Okay.
So, but I would be happy to be on that one too. And
Yeah, I was gonna say, you want to be on that one? If Mr. Ballen comes on.
We'll DM him again.
Yeah, we'll get him. We'll get him.
I will.
This is dead air.
Yeah.
This is just dead air.
Okay.
We'd be happy to have you on, and thank you for contributing. We're gonna have to get Kateri a mic.
Yeah.
She has a lot to
I need a
contribute.
mic.
All
You and
right.
Hannah can share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll actually turn the mic around the right way.
Yeah, we
so
will.
you guys are like contortionists over
Yeah,
there.
because
I'm so sorry.
I flipped it from where it normally
Yeah.
is, and I didn't think about the mic direction
yeah.
until you started talking. I was like, oh crap.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'll fix that for next
I
show.
can sit. Like
It's
right
easy to
here
fix.
and
Take me
look.
2 seconds. I just have to come over there. So, yeah, cool.
All right, I think that's the show for tonight. I think it's almost 2 hours. That's
Yeah.
pretty good show. It was a good show, and I think that it was good that we went away from the more solemn parts and ended on a more fun and something worth looking forward to. Not that the warning's not worth looking forward to, but the Mr. Ballen podcast would be something definitely to look forward to.
Whether he's on it or not, it's still the Mr. Ballen alien.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's still going to be the Mr.
Yeah.
Ballen podcast. Somebody's going to play Mr. Ballen if he can't.
Exactly.
If he can't be on.
Yeah.
We'll have
I
like
will.
We'll have a deep fake.
Yeah. Well, deep fake.
Deep fake Mr. Ballen.
on top of Kateri's
Yeah,
face.
tears on it.
That's right. And then, well, she has her hair is almost as long as his in the back.
yeah,
She just
it's
put a
true.
baseball cap on backwards,
It's
and you'll
true.
be fine. Put a little facial hair on you.
Yeah.
You know,
A plaid shirt. Yeah.
plaid shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little chest hair. And you'll be all set.
He's anemic now. If that's the right word.
Anemic means low iron.
Oh crap! What's the one where you throw up a lot and you get really skinny?
Bulimia.
Bulimia.
Bulimic.
Bulimic. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's when you binge and then purge.
Oh.
Anorexic.
Let's call it that.
Anorexic is that.
That's cool.
So my friend Bill, when we were in college, used to say, a lot of people suffer from bulimia. I suffer from bulimia, which is instead of binge and purge, it's binge and sleep.
But I'm too young because he's way older than me.
We'll
so
deep
I
fake
might-
it.
We'll have a fake face over you
Yeah. Maybe if he's a paper.
and make you. Well, you'll sit like he does. We'll put his hat. You'll put the hat on backwards.
Yeah.
And you'll be all set.
I'll do this in the chair.
There you go.
Sounds good.
There you go.
All right.
All right.
Well, thanks everybody for listening to the Manhire show. I really appreciate it, and we have some good show material coming up. Obviously, hope you like this one about the warning. Sorry it took us so long to get another one out, but we have, again, as Will said, some logistics that we've been working through. It's exciting news. We will tell you about it when it becomes finalized. But there might be a new a Manhire homestead to look forward to. Yes,
and we might be in a different closet by next episode. We don't know.
We might be because of some of the logistics. So until next time, I'm Dad.
I'm Mike.
I'm Will.
I'm Kateri.
Hannah.
And I'm Hannah.
There we go.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.